I'm staying at the coolest Airbnb I've ever been to. It's a literal cereal box house, so I'm gonna give you all a speed tour of it. Let's go, come on. First of all, we have the really cool front. It says cereal and really cool lights. We have spilt milk all over the floor. We have a really cool fire pit. We have these humongous windows on the outside. And just like, look at how cool they designed it and all the really cool details they put into it. Over here, we have a life-size bowl of cereal. It's a really cool hammock with these custom-made cereals they made. And then over here, we have a carton of milk, and you're never gonna guess what's inside of it. A sauna. It's so nice, so perfect, and we're definitely gonna be using this later. All right, come on, let's go. Now let's do an inside tour. First, we got the living room. We have the space over here. We have these really cool cereals up here. Then we have the kitchen. We have Cora and Jimmy. Jimmy's making some dinner. We have literally any cereal you could ever want. Also more over here, and milk in here. And then over here, we have the bathroom. Look at how nice it is. It literally walk-in shower, and it has these really cool waterfall, whatever kind of shower things, I don't know. And then come up here, we have the stairs. Look at the lights, look at the cereals up there. Come on, let's go. We're almost done. And then we get up here, we have Maddox, and then there's this humongous bed, so comfy, and a really big projector right there. That's the house tour. Go check it out.
Now, I ain't gonna lie, this is a pretty cool cereal box house. This is an Airbnb. First of all, why was he running doing this house tour? What was he in such a rush for? What was the hurry? You know, normally when some of these influencers or TikTokers do house tours, they take their time. It's aesthetically pleasing, blah, blah, blah. And then they show you all the shiny stuff inside. But no, not this guy. This guy was running like he was running like in a marathon. Like, what are you doing? I don't know if that's his style of doing content creation, but it was crazy. And the cameraman fired his ass too. It was too much back and forth. But I thought this was really interesting to share because it's not every day that you see an Airbnb made out of a cereal box. Isn't that cool? Whoever the architect was genius. I ain't gonna lie. You know, normally I would make fun of stuff like this, but this is actually very cool. You know, if that were me, I'd probably stay. But knowing it's an Airbnb and how, you know, it's specially designed into the actual, you know, cereal box, I guarantee you that these white kids are probably paying about close to $1,000 or more a night. I guarantee you, because Airbnbs are not cheap. Oh no. Now I've seen the pros and cons of Airbnbs. I've never stayed in one as fancy as this, but the first time I actually did do an Airbnb, I think it was like back in 2020. This is when I first got laid off from the post office. I was a seasonal worker, and I ended up going to Colorado. Called myself doing random trips when I got my car accident settlement. Best year of my life. I'm not joking. I took so many trips that year. That was my very first Airbnb experience. I did a cabin in the woods on the side of a mountain outside of Denver when I went to Colorado for the very first time ever. That Airbnb was okay. I wouldn't brag about it. It was a very nice cabin. However, you have to be very cautious of the fine print and the descriptions when they post these Airbnbs. See, what I didn't realize in the fine print of the Airbnb that I rented for the weekend, it didn't really exactly stand out to me at first until I read the whole posting. But they made it seem like we had the whole entire cabin to ourselves, when it wasn't true. Apparently, the owners lived on site, but they rented out the bottom half of their cabin and called it a private one-story apartment. So basically, you perpetrating and falsifying descriptions on Airbnb and acting like you have the whole house to yourselves when in fact that's not true. So it was kind of weird. I ain't gonna lie, they weirded me out. It was an older white couple. They were retirees. I think the wife was like a retired teacher. They were from like somewhere random, somewhere up north. I want to say they were from like Chicago or Minneapolis. I can't remember. It's been so long. And the white guy was really cool. He gave us a little tour of our Airbnb stay, told us how to enter the keypad, how to lock up and everything. Because they have like coded doors and stuff now for a lot of their Airbnbs. Or they have lock boxes. A lot of them do like the lockbox method where you get the key out, you punch in the code, you open the key, and then boom, you're inside the door. Yeah, it was very strange. Very strange. First of all, I had so many questions because I'm just like, what if they're watching us? Because, I'm black and, being in certain spaces where there are not very many black people, Exhibit A, Colorado, yeah, it was a little scary. Not gonna lie. No one bothered us. The Airbnb hosts, they never bothered us. They're very respectful. They're very kind. They actually did a lot for us. They were like super hosts. They provided breakfast on site. They didn't cook us anything, but they had like cereal, Pop-Tarts, granola bars, just a lot of snack stuff inside of the kitchenette area. And then they also said if we needed anything to ring the little doorbell. It was like a little janky doorbell they had hooked up to the side of the wall behind the counter, which I thought was kind of weird. I was just like, man, I hope these people ain't like some undercover serial killers because I'd be down to wake up in the middle of the night and I hear some crazy stuff and then it sounds like people screaming like I'm out of there. That's how paranoid I was. I was very paranoid because you had to think you're staying in the bottom half of a cabin in the woods in the middle of the mountains. You're far away from the city. You're nowhere near Denver, by the way. We were in a town called Golden, Colorado. Cute little town. Just very strange. And we were like maybe 40 minutes plus from the airport. I'll never do that again. Nope. I will never do that again, calling myself being adventurous in an Airbnb. No. I'd rather stay in a hotel and I'd rather be near the airport. I'm going to tell you why. The Airbnb was nice overall. The hosts were nice. However, there were two things I did not like. One, there was no cell phone service in that Airbnb that we stayed in. I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't feel as safe because the only thing that we did have was Wi-Fi. So unless you're calling someone over Wi-Fi or something, you weren't able to make a cell phone call in case of an emergency. So that was a big red flag for me. The second red flag was just the atmosphere. Just knowing that we were the only blacks in the cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, bum shit, Colorado, outside of Denver. Denver is okay. I never had an issue with Denver, but just know anything outside of Denver, yeah, you better keep your head on the swivel. We had a lot of people that stared at us when we walked around the town. We saw like the townspeople, like the locals and stuff. We're just walking around, just looking, just sightseeing. I didn't see no black people, okay? So I was already on edge, knowing that we were the only ones, the only token Negroes in town. Apparently they knew that we didn't live there. So yeah, it was one of the weirdest two night weekend stays I've ever did, and I'll never do it again. But it was also during COVID. So during COVID, a lot of stuff was kind of still shut down. So I didn't really have as much fun as I wanted to be honest. But I did notice that a lot of the bars that we went to, quote unquote, that were open, they were like limited hours. Like some of the bars, they were open like during the week, like Monday through Friday. But if it was like, or no, they were closed. And if they were open, they were only open for like happy hour. And then they closed hella early. I don't know why. Maybe it was a time of season that I flew. I flew out to Colorado around January, February timeframe, somewhere around there. right after my post office layoff. But yeah, weird time. Weird time. I felt like it was the wrong place, the wrong time. I felt like anytime you travel, especially throughout COVID, it wasn't a good experience because, I mean, just going to the airport, we had to wear masks everywhere. So it was already a downer, you know. And I don't mind wearing my mask again, hell, because there's germs flying like clockwork. I don't want to try to catch nothing out here. But, yeah, it was weird times. Weird times. Like I said, the Airbnb was nice. The hosts were nice. It was just the atmosphere was weird, and just knowing there was no cell phone service didn't sit right with me. Oh, and that little baby TV that we had inside. I mean, God forbid they tried to do like a nice little setup for us, but the way that they had like the little living room set up, they had like two old mom and pop rocking chairs in there with a little dining table, and it was like a baby 32-inch TV attached to the wall, and I saw like all types of wires hanging from the back. I was like, ew, this is ghetto. I said, no wonder this Airbnb was so cheap. It was like only $100 and some change. That was another red flag. So there are 3 things I learned. If you ever do Airbnb, run far away. If you see an Airbnb price lower than $100 a night, anything below $100 is a clear indication of a red flag. That one, either the hosts are weird or the location is weird. One of the two. And most of the time when they're cheaper like that and they have like a set rate where it's like $100 and below, that means that host is most likely living in that Airbnb and they're just renting out a room inside of their home, or they're renting out half of their house like they did in the cabin. So those are the little things you have to look for if you ever decide to do Airbnb. But from the looks of it, from what I've seen on TikTok, they're not doing too hot. I'm gonna be honest. I've seen a lot of horror stories about people's Airbnb stays. I don't know if it was just location, or if it was just the people in general, or if it was just the state that they were traveling in. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of people complain about Airbnbs being filthy and dirty. They're not clean. Sheets ain't been changed. Ugh. I said at this point, you might as well stay in a hotel for safety purposes, because, again, you don't know what you're going to. You don't know if the neighborhood is safe. And like I said, we lucked out because it was a cabin in the woods and it was winter. Ain't nobody gonna bother you in the damn snow unless you're like in no man's land and it's just hella racist or something. But yeah, we were very lucky. We're very fortunate. We didn't come around no axe murderers or nothing, or no type of wildlife. Because I kept hearing like stuff in the snow, like something was walking. But every time I looked out the window, it was just mounds of snowfall. It was just falling on the rooftop. But yeah, I never encountered any types of crazy wildlife when I was there. I never saw any elk. I never seen any bears. I never seen any moose or nothing like that. We were very fortunate. We didn't come across wildlife. But yeah, I said this is the first and last time my black ass is doing anything spontaneous with an Airbnb in the woods. I'm not doing this again. The only other time I might consider doing a cabin in the woods trip, if it's like maybe a group trip, or if I'm solo. And the only reason I tend to lean towards a group trip is only if I feel I don't know the location very well and I don't know what I'm walking into. So I feel a little bit safer being with a group of others, other strangers per se. You know how they have those, travel groups, stuff like that. If it's like an all black women travel group or something like that, hell yeah, I'm all down for it. If it's like one of those retreats where it's like a wellness center and they're doing like a female wellness retreat, yeah, I'm down. Sign me up. That's the stuff I'm looking forward to. I think that stuff is really cool. It's relaxing, and I feel hella safe when you do those type of activities. But when you're solo, you have to really, really be cautious and keep your head on the swivel. At that time, I did the cabin in the woods Airbnb. I wasn't solo. I was actually with a friend of a friend who really wasn't a friend. But anyway, yeah, it was overall a weird experience. But yeah, that'd be like the only time I would do another cabin in the woods experience. If I'm on a retreat with a group, or if I'm solo on like some type of resort where I know I'm going to be okay, there's other people there, and I'm not necessarily alone. I just have my own separate cabin on that resort. That's like the only way this is going to work. But yeah, I haven't stayed in the air. Well, I take that back. I'm lying. I did stay in 2 other Airbnbs. The only time I got freaked out, I'm gonna tell you, ooh, I just thought about it. When I first relocated to Virginia last year. Haha, fun fact. The first Airbnb I stayed in was a little bit outside of Richmond. It was in some shithole near Chesterfield, which is like the boonies of Richmond. It's literally the woods. And it was a nice area. Don't get me wrong. It was a suburb community, but it was way out in the woods. It was far. I didn't realize how far I was from the city until I looked it up. And I was like, damn, I'm like 30 minutes out from the city. But the hosts, they were weird. It was a white couple. I think they were a little bit younger, maybe like mid 40s, mid 50s, somewhere around there. But I never met them. They never would come downstairs. They never formally introduced themselves. They just didn't bother me the whole time. And I didn't stay there very long either. I only stayed there for like maybe 1 or 2 nights, and then I got the hell out of there. I didn't even stay there the whole stay. I was planning to do a 3 or 4 night stay with them, because what ended up happening when I first moved to Virginia, I ended up having to find hotel stays and Airbnbs to cover at least 3 weeks, because my apartment wasn't move-in ready. Apparently somebody was still in this apartment. And so in order to deal with that dilemma, I had no choice. I had to find either a hotel or Airbnb. So I said, screw it, I'm gonna do both, because I want to see what the Airbnbs look like out here and try to see if I can save a little bit of coin. So what I ended up doing, I split my weeks. I did like 2 weeks of Airbnb, and I want to say like a week of a hotel stay or something like that. So that first Airbnb, like I said, weird. Never met the people. They never bothered me. They always texted me on the app, on the Airbnb app. We were chatting back and forth, said, if you need something, let us know. They stayed upstairs. I lived downstairs. It's like one of them shared co-op Airbnbs. I don't like that shit. I'll never do that again. And I had the guest room, which was nice. I mean, it was very private, but just knowing that they weren't really communicative with me, and they never really formally introduced themselves, kind of made me feel a little off. You know what I mean? So what did it for me, what spooked me about that couple, was the fact that I went to the beach the next day, and then I come back, and before I come back, the couple, the lady or whatever, she texted me and said, hey, when you get back or whatever, my husband and my son are coming in town, so make sure you park a certain way in the cul-de-sac so everyone has spacing to park. And then she sent me a screenshot of where to park my car. But that part didn't bother me. Oh, no. What bothered me was the night before I went to the beach. The night before I went to the beach, I was talking with an old coworker of mine. I used to work at the hospital in Texas, and we were FaceTiming. And while we were FaceTiming and talking, I laughed. I kept my voice down, okay? I wasn't loud. Mind you, I'm downstairs in the guest room. They're upstairs. So apparently, somehow, don't know how, maybe my voice traveled, didn't realize it through the air vents, but they heard me as I laughed. So as I'm talking and having a good time and telling her about what my experience was with Virginia, mind you, this is the first time I've ever been to Virginia. I've never been here, All of a sudden, the host texted me on the app and was like, hey, can you keep the volume down? We can hear you. And I said, nigga, who the fuck else is in this house besides your husband and your son? This is before the husband and son came. So I was like, I don't know who on this woman's house. I ain't got time for it. You on your own. Kiss my ass. So when I came back from the beach that following day, I packed up all my shit. I got the hell out of there. I put her key back in her little lockbox, locked it up, her little code. And then I texted her on the app and I said, hey, something came up. I had to leave early, but it was nice knowing you. Peace. And I got the hell on. Because I said I am not staying with her. So I ended up getting like a 2-day or 2-night hotel temporarily until I found me another Airbnb to start the following week. And then that was a nightmare. That was a hellhole. I'll never stay in it, sleep in again. That's like staying at the Days Inn. I learned that lesson real fast. And then after that, the next Airbnb, the last one, thank Jesus, was an older white lady. Very nice, very sweet. Never harmed a fly. She gave me a tour of her whole entire house. And she had like a nice, I want to say it was like a 2-bedroom condo. It was really nice. It was really pretty. Brand new, fully remodeled. You would never know looking from the outside how nice it was inside. It just looked like one of those random old brick and mortar homes. But yeah, she had a lot of work done to her condo. It was really, really pretty. She had like stainless steel appliances. She told me I could have anything in the fridge if I was hungry. I said, oh no, that's not necessary. I can buy my own food. It's fine. So I stayed on one side of the house. I had my own bathroom. Thank Jesus. I didn't have to share a shit with that old lady. She had her own side of the house with her bedroom and her own bathroom. And everything was spotless. I was very shocked. I was expecting, see like cat hair all over the place and shit. Because, old folks, especially older white people, I ain't trying to be funny, but they not the cleanest. Not all of them are the cleanest. But that lady, Hunty, had that whole house spotless. I'm talking to a T. And I said, do you clean your own home? If you don't mind me asking, like, who helps you? Because she was elderly. That lady was like in her 70s. And she looked like she needed help around that house. And she was like, oh no, I hire professional cleaners. They clean the house all the time. Oh, so you got a little bit of money on. You got a little bit of money. So I come to find out, she was a retired nurse. She did like over 30 plus years in the nursing system here in Virginia. Her ex-husband was a pilot for the airline. So yeah, she had a little bit of change. She wasn't worried. Plus Social Security, I'm sure, because she don't work no more. So yeah, Granny was paid. Granny was getting a lick. Plus her passive income from Airbnb. This is how I know she had some money. This is how I know she was a really good host too. Honey, she said I could be as loud as I wanted. She didn't give a damn who had come over. She said her house is mi casa, is su casa. I said, lady, I don't know nobody here. I said, from the last experience I had, I'm going to be very respectful towards your homes. I'm naturally a respectable person, and I'm not going to disturb your peace, especially me being new in town, knowing not what to expect. So if I have a phone call and I'm going to be loud and be like a hyena and cackle, I'll just politely step outside and go to my car because I don't want to ruin your peace. Apparently the last one was a heckler and was annoyed by my ghetto-ness, I guess, because I got too loud on the phone. So she was like, oh no, it's not a bother. And I was just like, Granny is trying to be nosy. And this is at the time when my best friend was living when I first moved here. And we was always on the phone talking shit. It was so funny. But anyway, that was the best and cleanest Airbnb I've actually stayed in. Seriously, I've never seen an Airbnb like that. I felt like I was on vacation away from vacation in somebody else's home. I really did. She was a very, very nice lady. She told me some funny stories too. She was really funny. But outside of her, the rest of my duration was hotel stay. I would do like 4 days at Hampton Inn and then like 4 days at like, I don't know, La Quinta. That was on another hellhole. I didn't realize I was at the La Quinta in the hood until I seen the area. And I said, oh God, I hope no one breaks in my car. Luckily, no one broke in my car. But yeah, I made it work. I popped that Klarna, that Afterpay. Yeah, Klarna comes in handy when you're low on funds and you need something in a quick and a hurry, an emergency. And that was my saving grace, was Klarna and Airbnb. And you can actually use Klarna for Airbnb as well. I believe they also accept Affirm. That's another one that they accept, and Afterpay for like pay later options. But yeah, made it work, paid them all off. as soon as I started working here, and I was good to go. But yeah, that was my little Airbnb experience. So hopefully I didn't scare y'all off with my experience. But sometimes, like I said, it's a hit or miss. What I would suggest before you select an Airbnb, always research the neighborhood. Because like I said, these neighborhoods can fool you. You can look like you might be on the right side of town, but then you might be in the hood. So you have to be very cautious. Because when I was living in Dallas and I was doing Uber on the side and working at the same time on my 9 to 5, I had picked up these two white girls that flew in. I think they flew in from like California or something like that. And they were down there for something, some kind of event. And they had an Airbnb. And I said, "Where's your Airbnb located?" "I was in Fort Worth." I said, "Fort Worth, Texas? Do you know where you at?" "Honey, this is the hood. I don't think you want to stay here. This is not safe." She was like, "For real? Yeah. You might want to check out that Airbnb and go somewhere like maybe North Dallas or maybe like closer to downtown where it's normal. But anywhere around this area or Arlington in general is a no-go." I told them right away, like, this is not the place where you want to stay. And as soon as we pull up, it was so funny. You should have seen their faces. Their faces just dropped and they sunk. Because they were like, "Is this the Airbnb? Like, oh my God, we're going to get robbed, dude. We're going to get like murdered." It was so funny. Y'all should have seen their faces. I felt sorry for them because I was just like, if I saw a gated ass community with bars on windows, I wouldn't dare get out the car. If I were y'all, I'm just saying, take my advice. Go ahead, get your money back and find another place. Hell, just go get a hotel. There's no harm in getting a hotel stay. I don't know why, some of these folks is so hung up on Airbnbs when they travel. I don't get it. But I guess some people like the feeling of home. But there are some hotels that are designed to have like the feeling of home. They have kitchenettes, like those little extended stays, like Extended Stay America. They got wood spring with a whole kitchenette and a little burner top stove. They got all that shit in there. I think the nicest one I've seen personally is probably Home 2 Suites by Hilton. That's actually a nice one. But yeah, that's probably the closest you're going to see to an Airbnb. Outside of that, I would definitely suggest hotel stay. Ain't nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to a hotel versus an Airbnb. Because at least you know that you're in your own room. You don't have to share shit with nobody. You don't have to worry about no creepy ass people watching you on a hidden camera somewhere. You have to think about all that stuff. But anyway, that's my thought process. I'm just paranoid in general. I really am. But y'all let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments below. Would y'all stay in an Airbnb like this? Or would y'all get a hotel? Let me know what y'all think. I'm curious, okay?